We're going to go ahead and get started. For some of you that have not met me, I'm Kimberly Richardson. I am the agricultural extension agent. If you all remember Patrick Mangan, Patrick went up to Missoula. I came over from Deer Lodge and took Patrick's place. And so Bridget and the group asked me to come in and be your facilitator so that they would be able to be active members within the group and actually have a side and be able to take a side without, you know, having the facilitation piece. So tonight I'm going to just kind of guide us through. The ultimate thing with me as your facilitator is I'm not here to tell you what decisions you need to make. I'm just here to help you go along the process and choose what this group wants to go with moving forward. And so what you all decide doesn't affect me either way, other than being a resident here as well. But it definitely, you know, is I'm here just to help guide you through and get to decisions that need to be made, get to consensus if that's what the group decides on. And so tonight, let's go. I did my introduction. I came from Deer Lodge. I did my master's in ruminant nutrition and microbiology. I am a cat, so I saw some Grizz hats around here, so you'll have to excuse that piece. Can't help it. And I tell folks they pay me to wear the gear. So so I get that. I did my research over in Miles City at Fort Keogh. So I spent 2 years doing a traditional master's program and then came into extension. So I have a son, I have a 5-year-old and my significant other, and we also take care of his mother. We live, I think it's Victor as the crow flies, but truly it's over on Camp 3 Road on that east bench. And so they call it Corvallis, but as the crow flies, I think it's Victor. So other than that, if there's any questions, if you have anything specifically for me, extension, you know, serves as kind of a liaison in many, many fashions. We also facilitate many, many groups. Obviously, the big youth component that we have, I did recognize some of our presenters in the little presentation because they're also 4-Hers. And so we, you know, work together in the community. I sit on several different boards and work as a facilitator on numerous of those boards that I work with. I'm ex officio on all boards. I don't have any voting rights. I don't take bribes. Dinner would have been okay, but or a beer too. That would have worked too. Yes, but you can't bribe me. I'm here to work for you all. Your tax dollars pay my salary, and so I'm here to work with you and help you get to some consensus and conclusions and some processes moving forward. And Bridget and I have visited, and we're just going to see how this goes. You also have the ability to say she's terrible, take her away. So we have that. I don't know if Bridget will agree because then she has to come back to being the facilitator, but you do have that opportunity. There are many different folks that, you know, can facilitate. Luckily for us and for you, this is pro bono for me to do that. So I penciled you all into my calendar. So you all will make that decision on whether you want to keep me or not. So I guess to get started, especially since I don't know some of the people in the room, we want to just kind of go round table, but we'll go ahead and start with the folks online because I know we have a few folks on there. So if you want to just give us your name, maybe the organization or the department, or if you're just a resident, how you're related to this group, the membership, and then maybe how long you've been with the group. We'll go from there.
Shannon, if you want to go ahead and start.
Okay. I don't know. Is my video? I don't know if my video is on, but
We can see you.
okay. Hi, I'm Shannon. I am a graduate student in the environmental studies program at University of Montana. I'm working for my professor, Robin Saha, on a big Resilience Montana project right now, which involves a Bitterroot. So he just wanted me to hop on to see what you guys are talking about and kind of just sit and watch. I'm not really gonna, pipe in at all, but I'm just here and want to see what you guys are discussing.
Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.
We've got Dar next.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Dar Palin with Kootenai Creek Village here in Stevensville have wrote and gotten approved a small fuel mitigation grant here in our riparian area. So very interested in Bitterroot.
Awesome. Thanks, Dar. Next, we've got Zay on there.
Hello, Zay Hudson, representing our sheriff's office and 911. And I'm just here to offer support to y'all.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Zay. Next, I've got Warren. Warren, if you're here, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so this is Warren Applehans. I'm the District Fire Management Officer in Stevensville, and Steve could not make it the Rangers, so I'm sitting in.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Last, we've got Darcy.
Yes, hi, everybody. This is Darcy Hanson with the State Farm office at Stevite.
Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Great. Yes. Now we have everybody online. And so now if we want to start here and go around this way, we'll snake across and then we'll just kind of snake to you all.
I'm Judy Anderson. I'm a private landowner.
Bridget Mancini, Ravalli County Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator for the DNRC.
Rick Donovan, Assistant Director of Research Development for Sustainable Smart Manufacturing at the California Institute for Telecommunications and Information Technology at the University of California, Irvine. Hamilton resident and longtime Bitterroot resident. I'm here to represent expatriate Californians on all decisions. Certainly important when we're talking about these.
I am always gonna sit after you because you're the only one that my title is not longer than, so. So I'm Kristen Mortensen. I am the Community Preparedness and Fire Prevention Specialist for the DNRC Southwestern Land Office, of which Ravalli County is a part of, and I work closely with Bridget.
Good evening, Mark Wilson. I'm the Forest Fire Management Officer for the Bitterroot National Forest.
And I introduced myself, so go right ahead.
I'm Tim Hancock, retired Forest Service, currently with the Bitterroot RC&D.
Byron Boney, retired Forest Service, Bitterroot RC&D, Community Forester.
And my name is Sam Lammy. I'm a resident landowner up on the hill on Mountain Meadow Road, and I happen to still work for the Forest Service. I'm a geospatial program manager, so sort of up Ken Brewer's alley, and just interested first meeting. So the kids, the students were great. I loved it. So
too, good.
Ken Brewer, retired Forest Service and representing Florence Fire.
My name is Marie Scott. I'm with I'm a resident here up above in Victor. But I'm here representing Team Rubicon, a disaster response organization in the West. We're focusing on mitigation efforts where we can before disaster. Sorry, can I interrupt the folks
Yes.
online? Cannot hear anyone over there. The microphone's being here, so if you could speak up a little bit in that section. Thank you.
I'm Stacy Welling. I'm the district conservationist for the Nrcs for the Hamilton Field Office.
I'm Dave Tingley, Bitterroot National Forest Fuels AFMO.
Matt Young, I'm the Forest Assistant Fire Management Officer to Mark on the Bitterroot.
Andrew Ambon, the new Ravalli County Forester. Been in the valley for 3 weeks, so I'm a newbie.
Welcome.
I'm Bert Kruger, I'm a logger for Alice.
I'm Celia Foreman. I'm a student at Corvallis High School, and I'm representing Corvallis FFA. I'm not a fire scientist. I'm also an FFA student. I'm Melody Shard. I'm also an FFA student at Corvallis. And I'm Erin Kruger. Small business owner in the Valley.
Excellent.
No doubt.
No, my ride's staying for the meeting, so I'm staying.
And Anna,
And Anna.
I'm Anna Bateson, I'm the fire prevention officer on the Florida Task Force.
Excellent. Well, nice to meet everybody and looking forward to going forward with our meeting. So the next thing is on there is the meeting objectives. We will actually look at those as we start looking after Stacy's presentation and as well as Judy's document that was provided. I know that Bridget sent that out to everybody. I have a copy if someone needs to see it that hasn't seen it, and maybe Anna might pull that up and share that document. But there, I think our objectives will kind of evolve as we start looking through some of those things, and we can visit and discuss and come up with some good objectives on how we want to incorporate those 2 pieces or 3 pieces into what you all want to decide for the evening. So with that, we'll let Stacy, I know that we're pretty close to that piece, little bit over, but Stacy, if you want to take it away, the floor is yours.
All right. I won't take up too much time. I just wanted to, I think I've presented early on in this group on a webinar, but
And
so
if
I
you
thought
want to
I'd come
stand
out
here,
What's
just
that?
for the
What's the best
online
place?
folks, because that's
Here?
the mic. Yep.
Okay.
So
So I thought I'd come out here and just meet everybody in person. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with the NRCS, but for those of you that aren't, the NRCS is an agency under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We work with agricultural producers and forest landowners, and we basically work with them to help identify resource concerns on their ag operation or their forest lands. And then we help them identify and develop practices that could potentially address those resource concerns. We have cost share programs through the Farm Bill that we work with. And so I mainly wanted to talk about Joint Chiefs because that is a funding opportunity that we've been awarded. We've been working with the Forest Service for a few years now. This proposal that got selected for funding, that was actually our 3rd go around. And I know I personally, my, I guess optimism was kind of low. I was just sort of feeling like we kept chasing this opportunity. And so I was really actually surprised and excited to get this funding opportunity. And so what it is I'll just talk about the NRCS side. The Forest Service is going to get a good chunk of money out of this as well, and it's for 3 years. And then I think RC&D is going to get some additional funding for their fuels reduction program, so that's awesome. And just to back up a little bit, so the Joint Chiefs is basically the chief of the NRCS and the chief of the Forest Service. They recognize that probably the most effective approach to dealing with forest health and fire risk issues is cross-boundary treatments and at a larger scale, more of a watershed scale. So that's where the term Joint Chiefs comes from. And so for the NRCS side, this is really nice because it's an additional funding opportunity that comes directly from the national office. So Cwpp is our most popular and commonly utilized Farm Bill program for cost share. So when folks in Ravalli County apply for Cwpp cost share, they're basically competing, Montana NRCS gets a chunk of money, and then everybody in Western Montana, all their projects and applications are competing for that money. Well, this National Joint Chiefs money is just an additional funding pool on top of that. So it's just a great opportunity to really address forest health and fuels issues on private land. So we're really excited about it, and we have no concerns at all about finding good projects that are going to complement this effort. Year 1 is always a little tricky, at least for the NRCS, because there's a scramble to try to get everything in place for year 1. And initially, we were actually told that there would not be an application period for year 1, which we weren't too worried about because it also complements a priority area that we have, which is on the eastern part of the valley. So we knew we'd have applications, but then they did give us an application period. And so for year 1, the deadline is March 4th. So I'm really trying to get out there and just let people know and help spread the word about the opportunity. And so what it offers for private forest landowners is cost share for implementation. We call it forest stand improvement is the practice, but it's basically forest thinning, pre-commercial thinning, and then there's an intermediate silviculture treatment that addresses disease stands. Typically is how we use that one. And then there's also a slash treatment practice that cost share for the slash. So that's the practices that are offered to the private landowners. And so like I said, the application period for the first year is March 4th. I encourage anybody who is in that priority area for year one to just put in an application. It's an easy application. There's no commitment. It just throws their hat in the ring. And so if you can see on the map there, and I have flyers that have each year of the project and where those focus areas are. But for year one, it's the east side of the valley, and it's basically Scalcahoe Creek north up to the county line. So it's a pretty big area, and we've already gotten quite a bit of interest and phone calls. So that's year one. And then we have a lot more latitude when it comes to year 2 and 3. Year 2, which will be next year, is the southern part of the valley. So basically Scalcahoe south, and then it goes down onto the West Fork. And there is a little bit of flexibility in manipulating this boundary from what I've been told. So if we did get a lot of landowner interest that was relatively adjacent to any of these areas, we could, if we knew ahead of time, we could address that boundary. And then year 3 is the west side. So that's a little intimidating area for me, just because there is a lot of smaller chunks of private land in there. So a lot of work goes into each application and contract. But so that's the 3 years. Those are the areas covering. Like I said, there is a little bit of latitude. And we encourage anyone interested to just give me a call, because we are working with people even in like year 2 and 3, just so we can get ahead of the game a little bit, get familiar. And what we do when they submit an application, we'll basically set up a site visit. We'll go out and walk with them on their property. We'll talk about what type of treatment scenarios might be appropriate. We'll talk about what the cost share rate and what the timeline moving forward would be. Part of the application process is a pre-project inventory. So we'll do an inventory. And then over the winter, the highest, all the applications are assessed and ranked, and then the highest ranked applications are funded. And then at that point is when we sit down with the landowner, we'll go over all the prescriptions for each unit, what the cost share is going to be per acre. They'll sign the contract, and then at that moment, they can move forward with their project. So up until that moment, there's no obligation from a landowner. So there's a lot of latitude there and a lot of time, with the exception of year 1, to work with them and make sure that they're comfortable moving forward. And, I don't know what the deadline for contracting is going to be for year 1, but I'm thinking it'll be like the end of June or July. So that's still quite a bit of time for a landowner to work with contractors and make sure that they're comfortable with what they're agreeing to. But that's kind of the gist of the Joint Chiefs effort. Do you guys have any questions?
Is there a minimum or a maximum acres for NRCS?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So what we'll do is go through our applications and see what we have to help you out.
Okay.
We've got lots of applications.
Yeah, I know. There's been a lot of interest.
Yeah, so we'll go through that each side and see what we have.
Okay.
Send your way
All right.
before the 4th.
Yeah. Yes, before the 4th. So Friday, no big deal, right? Yeah, no problem. No rush. We'll be fine.
You looked at the calendar?
I think that was mainly the highlights I wanted to hit on. I mean, I always just encourage everyone to just give me a call, because I can explain it to people individually, the whole process and everything, and make sure that they're all comfortable with it. Yeah. Any other questions?
How are you going to know that this is working?
Well, I mean, a lot of the measurements that we look at is is acres treated. So that's kind of an obvious, there's going to be some benefits to the forest health, and there's some reduced fuels with the treatments. We also take a look at the acres within the high priority areas based on the Montana's Forest Action Plan. So that's a big tool that we use. So those are the main tools that we look at.
Do you know how much biomass you're taking off per acre?
That varies hugely depending on the project. So I don't have an average in my head because each project that we work on is so different.
I guess my question is, how do you measure?
How much
do you measure?
Well, basically the prescription looks at trees per acre. We look at an average spacing and we look at the stocking rate as well. But when we work with landowners, we're usually talking like, this is the average spacing. These are what your leave trees are. So we really focus on leaving healthy trees and making sure that we're maintaining the diversity of the species in the age class. And then as far as the slash, we like to see somewhere between 2 to 9 tons per acre. So there's a big latitude. Usually it's less, it's, more towards the 2, 3, and 4, but that's what we look at when we're certifying it.
So you do it afterwards?
Yes.
And you keep records on all that?
Yes.
Can I have that?
No.
No.
No, it's all private because it's tied to individuals. So if you wanted a particular project's information, you could call that landowner. That landowner could call us and give us permission, but it's protected by privacy and privacy protection laws.
Really?
Mhm.
So I guess my question comes back, how do you know this is working?
Well, like I said, we're really looking at acres treated. We know we have inventory data prior to the treatments and we do our inventory after. So we can see how we've, affected the stand as far as, obtaining the objective of leaving healthy trees, maintaining diversity. And so we know we're removing fuels and removing those diseased trees, addressing the overstocking. So we look at the acres treated. And then, tie it back into, again, we're using a lot that those priority areas in the Montana Forest Action Plan to see kind of how we're moving the needle or making an impact.
For your objectives, your fuel reduction for fire.
And forest
And
health.
forest health.
Yep. Yep.
And that is a one grant, like it's a cost share grant between the
It is.
landowner and the.
Yep.
Okay, is it like 50-50 or?
It's actually a per acre. So it depends. There's some variables. I won't get into the technicalities of the different cost lists, but just depending on the scenario, because there's different scenarios under each practice. On average, we say it comes out around $1,000 an acre. So
Okay.
that's a good ballpark, but there can be some plus or minus in there depending.
Thank you.
And you remove the slash reburn.
There's chipping, mastication, pile and burn, or lop and scatter. Some of these are, just handwork. So they're really just overstocked with small diameter trees. So they can actually do an effective treatment and just lop and scatter.
And you said your target for debris is 2 to 9?
2 to 9 tons per acre for
Usually on the low end.
usually because people don't want to see more than that. So, yeah.
One more question.
Mhm.
Are there enough contractors in the Bitterroot to handle what's going on?
Yeah, that's a big topic. That's definitely a topic. And I've been calling around to different areas in Western Montana and getting their list. And that's one of the tasks within the next week or two with our staff is to divide up that list and just start calling every single number and just like, this is what we got going on. This is what our treatments are looking like. This is what we pay. Is that something that you're actually interested in? Because what's been happening is a landowner will call, maybe 6 contractors, and it's totally, I mean, they're busy, earlier it was fire, everybody's off on fire. They've been very busy on fire season. So this is their catch up time. I mean, But what happens is they'll maybe hear back from 3 of them and 2 of them will be like, I'm not interested. And 1 of them will go, so it's been a challenge, but I feel like a lot of it has been a function of not having a big enough list. Because when I talk to people in Missoula, they're working with totally different people than what's on our list. So I just feel like we need to do a little bit of groundwork and expand our list. And I'm hopeful that, and think a little outside the box. I was talking with some contractors that just do handwork. They have like crews of 8 or 9 guys and that's all they do. And that would be perfect for a lot of our projects with these smaller landowners. So that was pretty optimistic. And so we're working on that issue and trying to just do our part to make sure we have a full encompassing list. And
So you have our list, right?
I have had it. I don't know if I have your most recent. That's another thing.
Get
Is
that too, as long as you don't steal them from us.
well, I can't promise that.
Change the numbers, their phone number.
Yeah, I can't promise that, but yeah, that would be great.
So any contractor that we have, have at it, they need work. These are good projects for them.
Yeah.
Keeps them local and
Yep.
I like to work local.
Yeah.
rather than going clear over to Keystone and Madison.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get that momentum going. And you have a question?
Yes, I do. Since the west side has to wait a few years, if there aren't enough applications in the first 2 years, would anybody from the west side be able to apply in year 2 to get in early?
I don't think that's going to be an option because they're pretty set with these shape files or these areas that we're using. I might be able to manipulate that boundary a little bit to expand it, but just hopping over to another year, I don't think that would be okay. Yeah.
So we'll have to finagle with Byron.
Yeah, bug Byron. He's got plenty of time. No.
For everybody's benefit, we currently have 2 Western States grants, one for Missoula and one for the Valley, and those can go anywhere. But we're under the same rules as NRCS and Forest Service in terms of this 3-year deal that Joint Chiefs has. So we're under those same rules, but the Western States is, and those grants can go anywhere.
One last question, that'd be open to anybody that might know. Does the state of Montana, do they have any inmate conservation crews that do that type of work? The handwork?
I'm not aware of any. I don't know if Byron or no.
Yeah. To my knowledge, they only have the one does fire suppression. I don't think they do fuels.
We do, like Missoula Rural
Yeah.
has a mitigation crew.
Okay.
Frenchtown Volunteer Fire Department has a mitigation crew.
Okay, I guess that's what I was looking at,
Yes.
any private. I know I had a background, I worked for the Nevada Division of Forestry for a while, and they not only did their fire crews in the summer months, but in wintertime, they did fuels work around Lake Tahoe and various parts around, and they're pretty effective.
Yeah.
They didn't cost much.
My hope is, from my side of the fence is maybe that's something some of the local departments might grow into. over
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a really nice resource.
Yeah.
Somebody had mentioned the Job Corps, I guess,
another.
but I don't know if that is, I don't know how much, as far as their curriculum or their objectives, if they have that kind of latitude, but somebody the other day had mentioned them, but I don't know if anybody knows about that or.
We
if
use them
that's-
on our side of the fence, and that may be for fuels work. Could be a limiting factor, but that's a good question if they have an opportunity to.
Might be worth a phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll
Do
put
they
that
have
on my to-do list.
Their age group, can they run chainsaws and stuff, or are they limited to hand tools?
Yes, they can, but right now that group is we put employees from the Forest Service with them to do that work, which
So you're-
limits them to federal land.
Yep.
But the Job Corps Center itself might have the capability to do something just through Job Corps on private. I hadn't really thought of that as an option, but that's something I'll maybe bring up to them.
Okay.
You know, Max Redholz, the Missoula County Wildfire Preparedness Coordinator, was working on that issue, having, I believe Job Corps doing mitigation work, ran into some issues because of liability.
Oh.
But it might be worth a call. He's also working with United Way. And trying to set up like mitigation crews and that. So he might be a resource too, just for potential out of the box options.
Yeah.
That he's exploring also.
All right.
But right now, I think the limitation would be leadership, because that's how we use them, is we provide federal employees as
Right.
leadership to use the students.
Yeah, that would be the
leadership
challenge.
might be the challenge.
Yeah, because our contract is typically with the landowner, and so then it's really up to the landowner to I mean, we help them and we'll do whatever we can to facilitate that, but it's really up to the landowner, and so that might be the challenge there. I had a question. I've been getting a lot of phone calls from new landowners and even homeowners associations, and they're very interested in, fuels reduction and fire risk assessments. And I've been directing them to the Fire in the Root webpage or giving Bridget's phone number. Is that the most appropriate? Okay. I just figured while I was here, I'd make sure that I'm not just like sending people over and
Yeah.
Some are more persistent than others. So.
Any other questions?
Just one quick question. So people, let me just give you a little background. I'm working on a grant that's looking at resilience for agriculture and forestry in the watershed. And my question's about, how are you measuring this and what are you measuring and stuff is really important. And so people apply for a grant to help them. So they provide part of the funding and the grant provides another part. There's a cost share.
Ours is actually a set payment per acre. So if, like, we work with people where they do the treatment themselves, so then they just get all the money, like we,
And so is there a list of people that get these grants? I mean, can we find out who they are and maybe contact them and try and enroll them in a research program?
Unfortunately, it's those privacy protection laws. We can't reduce, we
But
can't
this
really.
is federal funding.
No, but here's what you could do. Provide Stacy with your information.
Yeah.
And she can provide the landowner with, hey, there's a,
Yes.
potential for you to be involved in a research project.
Yes.
If you would like to.
Yeah.
Reach out and contact Rick.
Yeah.
And he'll want
Is
all your
that-
data.
Is that something that you can do?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Within your mission, you're not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tie people into all kinds of other organizations and individuals that might help them as long as they're okay
Yeah,
with it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
maybe we can coordinate through RC&D in
What did you
general.
say? Yeah. Any-
Or if you just give me a call and I understand a little bit more about your objectives, so when I'm working with people, I can explain that better to them, and then it's, then it's their choice, but if they're interested, then they can give you a call.
Yeah.
Or if you have a little flyer that explains it, I can print a bunch and
Should
as
I give
I.
him my flyer, Byron?
Well, no, not the 20,000 slides.
No, 1-page flyer.
I tortured Byron.
A one pager.
I tortured
One
Byron
page.
one afternoon.
Yeah, we're trying to go paperless in the federal government, so 1 page. All right.
And are
anything
there
else?
any questions from the online group?
Can you hear me? It's Dar.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned the Job Corps. I did contact, I think it was Trapper Peak Job Corps, about helping us here in our riparian area. And because of COVID, they were kind of locked in, and then they had a educational program going for the individuals in it, but they sounded like, yes, they would. But it seemed to me, I remember now, they've charged a pretty high amount per hour for their service.
Well, it still might be, I mean, it sounds like it potentially could be an option so maybe I'll just give them a call and learn more about it.
So Emery, what about Team Rubicon? Like, would they fit into that, especially if there was a need base to the application.
Certainly not production slayers, so we're not gonna be able to do the acreage that the company is doing. We also can't do, a lot of, close to buildings, hazard trees. But what we can do is, once a professional takes those down, we can talk about the or we can do smaller amounts of acreage for people who don't have resources.
Excellent.
All right, anybody else online that has a question for Stacy or would like to ask another question regarding the funding? All right, well, with that, we will now transition and let Judy bring up her project and her presentation, give us a little insight on what she has come up with, and we will discuss that as well. And I know that that was given out by Bridget. I don't know how long. I only had it, a couple of days, but I think that most of you all have maybe had it a little bit longer. So Judy,
Yeah.
take it away.
It started with my 6-page proposal that had several ideas in it, but the 2 ideas that I wanted to pursue with urgency was placing a sign, a small sign this size. Oh, it's up there. Okay, good. Which I think you guys saw the draft of at the last meeting. And so, yes. So now it has the QR code and it has the Fire in the Root logo on it. Looks prettier now. But it's pretty much the same wording that we had last time. And the reason for this is the time of year when people are trying to redo or to do from scratch their landscaping. And since embers from wildfires can land on decorative bark and shredded bark, those things that look nice but are very flammable. If that material is within 5 feet of a home or a wood deck or a wood fence, it's likely it could catch on fire and the home could be lost. So I wanted to have this at the point of sale at places like Ace Hardware. And the idea was to get a small bucket, and I was going to go to Donaldson's at the end of the day when their concrete trucks come in. They sometimes have excess that they have to throw away. I would just ask them to put it in our little buckets and we'll stick, haven't decided yet if it's going to be wood or if it's going to be metal, but something, maybe even this plastic material. This is not it, but something that we could post next to the stack of bark at Ace Hardware and other places that sell it. And it I think would be new information to a lot of people that never thought about they're kind of making a mess without knowing it and maybe putting themselves at risk because it looks pretty, but they haven't thought about the risk they're giving themselves. So anyway, I thought about that, and then Ace Hardware, I think they're going to go for it. The manager of the garden department says, oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm sure the boss is going to like that, but the boss hasn't gotten back yet. So I hope he's right about them going for it. We might have 3 signs there because they have stacks and stacks in different places. And then there would also be, I've got a little acrylic brochure holder that we could put at the register. So when they go to purchase it, if they haven't gone outside yet to see the sign, they can see it there. They can have the Fire in the Root brochure that has our logo also and the website address, so they can go there for more information. So that's on its way. The other project is I plan to meet individually with landscape designers. They've been working in winter with customers, putting designs together. so I'm kind of late getting to them. But you also saw a letter in advance asking them to help their customers consider using other materials next to the house rather than the flammable materials. And I have other information to go along with that letter. And I'm ready to go on that, but maybe there hasn't been enough time for people to respond to that. I've seen 0 responses so far. So I would like to ask if anybody has any concerns or questions about the letter, or if you think you might want to give a comment, I would say email Bridget, Anna, or me before noon tomorrow so we can get, I mean, it's going to take a while to visit 13 guys. And they're already, you know, the sun's out, snow's gone. I'm going to have to chase them down on their jobs. So any questions or concerns about what we're doing there?
I sent you some comments on the first round. And I had one comment on this one, where in your 6th paragraph, the last sentence talks about choosing optimal spacing. And you don't really talk about the spacing until the next paragraph. So you might clean up the reference there in that last sentence so that it's clear what you're talking about.
Well, included in the package that I'm going to give them is the big HIZ home ignition zone brochure that has the drawings and everything, and I'm going to be talking to them about it at the same time. So we were trying to keep it to 1 page, so.
One page is fine, but if I were just reading this,
Mhm.
when I get to choosing optimal spacing, I don't know what that references because it's not discussed previously in this letter, and it doesn't show up until the next paragraph.
Mhm.
So it's just a cleanup.
Yeah.
It's not. It's fine, except that it references something that you haven't referenced.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I thought I was gonna be able to be clear on that with the attachments that I'm gonna talk to them about. But if you have specific
Well,
wording,
then just parenthetically reference your attachment.
It's the last, I have it highlighted up here, Judy. It's this. We are asking. That's the
Yeah.
sentence, right?
right,
And you could just say described in the attachments.
okay.
If you've always got the attachments with this, then that's all you need to do. If you don't, you might want to talk about it in a slightly different way. And then the
Okay,
other comments I sent you earlier,
remind me what those were, I'm not sure.
I'll send it to you again.
Yeah, I don't know if,
The first time you send it out.
oh, did I include what you suggested in the current version? Oh, okay.
Darcy has a question online. I don't know. Can you ask
Oh.
Darcy to ask her question? She raised her hand.
Darcy, go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, so hi, everybody. It's a comment and a question. I just want you to know that I think this project is such a great idea because, you know, addressing people when they're going and starting their landscaping ideas is such a good idea because that's what people do their spring cleanup. There's so much related to keeping your house safe from, you know, fire starting or spreading from the things that you mentioned. And I think that your signs are definitely addressing that. So I just want to give you a shout out and say what a great idea this is. And I'm curious where this came from, how you came up with this. How did you decide this project?
Well, I have lots of ideas, but I took a class, a 13-week class, the same one that Kristen and Bridget and Anna took. I don't remember what the acronym stands for. COCO, was it?
Coalitions and Collaboratives, Inc.
Coalitions and Collaboratives, Inc. And anyway, it's with some Forest Service people, and the class was called Mitigation Best Practices, and they had a lot of different concepts, and one of them, of course, was the home ignition zone. And I personally have done a lot at my house. I'm a gardener. I'm a kind of a radical gardener, and I redid my landscaping based on this principle before I even took the class. So then the class required that I come up with some projects at the end to show what could be done with the information that I learned in the class. And I thought, oh, here's a chance for one of my ideas. So that's how it happened. And I'm still looking for comments on the other items that are in the proposal, that 6-page document. But understand, I realize that right now, the others are more long-term projects that I'm proposing. So when we really get into the CWPP, there'll probably be ideas that get hashed around there and maybe improved on or rejected or whatever.
Judy,
Yes.
so on this firewide landscaping write-up you have, talked about taking 30 days to find landscaper contact information and make initial connections, posing this new idea for them to discuss to their customers, okay? And then you go on to say that I plan to ask at least one fire professional to be available for questions. So would that be like some of the volunteer fire departments or the Forest Service, or who were you thinking of at that point?
Well, I was
Anybody?
thinking, yeah, I thought everybody's in that pool. Certainly everybody here who has fire experience. I might be giving you a call and saying, okay, you're the only one I could reach today on the phone. And you probably have an answer for me because I'm not a fire professional.
You have a list of those phones?
I have a lot of them, yeah.
Okay.
And then certainly all of the volunteer fire departments. I think those the chiefs of those departments would probably make the most sense to ask them if they want to be involved first, because it's private land versus public land. But I'll take anybody who's got fire experience if we need an answer right away and everybody else is busy.
Did you think about maybe setting an evening meeting up and calling all the landscape people and maybe trying to get them into a meeting? What do you?
I have thought of that, and I know from my own experience trying to get landscapers to respond. I have 2 that I work with, and they're really hard to get a hold of, and they're busy. They don't want to go to meetings.
Yeah.
You've been.
Yeah. So I've thought about that, but I didn't think it would be very successful. And I see Dirk Kruger's here, so I know him and I have his number. I could even call him. Thank you for your questions.
Thanks for your work on this.
Yeah.
Oh, so if anybody else has comments or concerns or questions about it, I really want to get these folders done and go out the door tomorrow. So contact us by noon if you want to make any changes.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah, we can start there. So we had discussed coming up with potential questions that we wanted to prepare for the commissioner meeting. And then we wanted to identify point people to that would be responsible for answering those questions at the meeting. So we can guess the best way. Not everyone was supposed to fill out answers. Myself, Kristen, I think Judy might have answered a few of them.
Yeah, I asked questions and answered my own questions.
Awesome. Yes.
Talk to myself.
And Rick got on there too. So we have a few answer options. So if we want to read the questions, read the answers, and then yay, nay it. And then identify a point person. Say, start there.
We'll get some back on the insurance stuff. That's a pretty key one, I think. Make sure we have completely fleshed out by 10.
Yeah.
Which
And Brandon had said.
He agreed
said
he
he'd
would
do it.
be
He
there.
said he'd
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, he'll be
Yeah.
there, so it might be something that maybe Bridget make sure to
I'll follow
reach
up
out
with
to
him.
him,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
flesh out that one, because I agree, we know that
That
one's
one,
gonna be there.
You know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanna say he said he couldn't make it tonight at the last meeting.
Yeah. I want to say so. And he might have sent me an email, but off the top of my head, I can't remember if he did or didn't.
So he's gonna be there for the commission
Yes,
meeting.
yeah.
And he has filled these out already.
No,
No.
no one has gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I filled in my own answers. I looked up what other people have been saying.
Our answers never sound as good as his.
I know. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They say the same thing, but they don't sound as good.
Yes, definitely agree. So regardless, I think, which for that one specifically, I mean, do we want to hear his reply? Do we want him to have a set reply that we would like to see before we show up to the meeting? Or are we
Only-
comfortable?
Only as a backup to him not showing up at the meeting.
Okay, like
mean,
that.
If he's there, then that's great.
Yeah.
But if he's not there, it'd be nice to have his words.
Okay.
Well, and
He
we also
promised
have
to be there.
Darcy
Yeah.
online,
Well, that's true.
you
Yeah,
know, so
that's
it's,
true. So we have,
we have
two.
multiple
We have two.
points
Yeah.
of view, and Brandon is just one, so I think
Right.
if Darcy has input on
Mhm.
any of the insurance questions, that would be
No,
extremely
absolutely.
valuable too, so that could be gone over here.
I think are the first two ones.
So
Those
we
are the-
going through all these, Bridget, or where should I start, the movie or the question list?
Click on the Louis one.
And I know it's hard to see, I'll blow it up, but then I'm making out busy.
Because so the wooey ones are, we know are gonna be a hot topic, and then that second one is the one that kind of asks about the insurance. So scroll up. No. Line 3 or 4.
That one.
Yes.
Let's see, when I scroll over and see the answer.
Yeah.
So maybe read out the question out loud, so everybody can see.
Well, can you read it, Bridget? Can you see it? Online.
Can't hear you.
I can blow it up.
Yes. So first question, will the hazard assessments in the CWPP be used by insurance companies? Could the WUI designation make my insurance go up? My little spiel was, this concern has been expressed. I think I grabbed this from another website that I saw. This concern has been expressed in the past when different wildfire hazard assessments have been completed. It is important to realize that most insurance companies have their own assessments to determine policies, and that there are a variety of wildfire hazard assessments available to the public. To our knowledge, CWPPs have not been used by the insurance industry to assess homes and policies. Additionally, the hazard assessment and community rankings look only at general landscape scale hazard potential and not the specific hazard to each individual home in identified communities. The CWPP will, no, you're fine. Will clearly state that it is not appropriate to make inferences, or it could state, we can't say that it is or isn't going to. But it could state that it is not appropriate to make inferences about the hazard level of individual homes from this assessment. More fine scale variables such as defensible space, access, construction materials, and response aspects must also be factored in addition.
So did Brandon see that?
I don't believe Brandon has seen that yet. No. And Darcy, what are your thoughts and comments if you have any on that one.
I mean, I definitely want you all to know that Brandon is the expert, but in my knowledge, I mean, I guess my question is, who is under the assumption that this is going to change the way insurance companies do what they do and make the decisions that they make? I'm just curious about this because I'm trying to learn too.
Yeah,
It's just a fear
Just-
people have.
yeah. Fear that people have.
It was
Sure.
a big fear with the 2009 CWPP update. It was one of the reasons why it wasn't signed, was the fear that people would lose their insurance if their homes were found to be in a designated WUI area, and that designation would come from the CWPP. So
Right.
it's a fear.
Sure. I can understand where those fears come from, you know, and I can only speak for State Farm in that really isn't something that State Farm customers need to worry about from my perspective, because we have plenty of people in the valley that are in wildfire zones and State Farm insures them, and there's no specific requirements for them that's different. The requirements come when a surveyor comes out and looks at your home and says, you've got debris around that needs to be cleaned up, or, you know, like Judy's purpose and what she's doing is trying to help teach people how to keep their land in their area around their home clean and free from debris that would cause a fire. So I know there's so much more to it than that. So like I said, I ask that you take Brandon's word first, because with Payne West, they're more local, but at least for State Farm, yeah, I mean, I don't see State Farm taking this and changing the way that they do things locally at this stage of the game.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. So, okay, could, yes, could.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
After. the
Yes.
Take will and
CWPP.
clearly
Yeah.
and put it to.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, could.
CWPP could is probably the best one.
Yeah.
And it's future indefinite.
Yes, could.
Could.
Yeah.
It's one big-
So we're gonna assign Brandon. He assigned himself already.
He did.
Yeah. So I'll just verify and make sure that he's gonna be at the meeting.
Yeah, and send in this.
Yeah,
Email it to him.
Okay. Will do. Okay.
Maybe he'll say it in fewer words.
Yeah, he will probably see it better.
How's the Louis map going to be used?
Yes.
No, that's.
So how's the WUI map going to be used? The purpose of creating the WUI map is to provide a visual representation of the potential wildfire risk to the values values at risk within the community, lives, homes, critical infrastructure that were identified through the CWPP process.
Good, but we need, how is it gonna be used?
Yeah, that's the issue. I think people are concerned whenever there's a map and their house is a dot inside that map. It's like you have guys like Rick asking for data all the time. What are you gonna do with the data? Well, I'm worried. And we're not giving them
Yeah.
security by saying we're gonna do this, because people are still going to wonder, what are you gonna do with it? Because I'm in the map.
Yeah,
So
so look at the other, what are the other inputs say? Yeah. Well, and
So I don't think I finished my answer fully, but so the purpose is creating that visual representation to identify, to show the wildfire risk and those values that we've identified within the community, and then it's utilized to prioritize funding and actions towards those identified
Yeah.
places
put
of
that in there.
risk. Yeah.
That's the purpose.
That's
is
the
to
purpose, yeah.
Prioritize and to prioritize the fuel reduction or mitigation projects.
So who's answering that? If the question comes up?
Yeah, who wants to be POC? And honestly, it might be one person, would it be best to have one person be kind of the wooey person? Like the one who answers most of the wooey stuff? Or have it stick around? Probably one person. That way anything
Probably.
wooey just goes
One.
to Byron.
Because there'll be
because
follow-up questions. It'll
Right.
Make more sense not to bounce it around.
Yeah. And then anything wooey can just go
So,
there.
what are the mechanics of this meeting? Byron's gonna be giving a presentation. People will be asking questions to Byron. No, the
No.
commissioners will be
Yeah.
asking questions.
This is
Commissioners will be asking questions to Byron. And Byron will then defer to somebody else
Right.
for certain questions, if he needs to.
Mhm.
So
And it's possible that the commissioners want maybe take a few questions from the audience too.
definitely.
That's probably a big deal.
So again, whatever the subject matter is, if we have that subject matter expert there, then that person's gonna actually answer the question.
Right.
I guess what I'm getting at is for some of these questions, like, how's the WUI map going to be used? I think Byron can answer that question pretty well.
Mhm.
We don't need to be,
somebody else.
yeah, we don't need to make it too as complicated as everybody's gonna.
Yeah.
One comment on the answer there
Yeah.
is there, I don't know, a role for the WUI map to educate people on where they live and what and might.
Yeah,
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there could be, definitely.
Because what come to mind is when you say, well, my house is in the, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe there's a point of education that said,
I
hey,
think the first part of that answer gets to that.
Yeah, that visual representation. Of course,
Yeah, it tells
that
you-
combined with the risk map is what provides them with that visual, right? Just being in the WUI, there's risk, but it doesn't identify, is it moderate? Is it high? What is the actual risk? And so that the WUI map combined with a risk assessment map, like the Montana Wildfire Risk Assessment.
okay,
So it's
So-
actually a
Right.
visual representation to show valley residents
Yeah.
and agencies responsible for fire suppression.
Yeah.
What that risk is.
Yeah.
would it be used for potential for people getting grants and help with that? Because if you're trying to relieve people's anxiety of why am I on the map?
Right.
And is this going to raise my insurance? Maybe a statement in there said, there's potential to use this for just, what Stacy was talking about, what the RC&D
Yeah.
does, and say, here's an opportunity. If you're in one of these areas, you would be a priority for fuels treatment.
Resources to
Yeah.
help, Yeah.
And funding.
Well,
And
it does
funding.
say that right here, it's a requirement in order to qualify for grants.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we are just choosing, point experts, we don't necessarily need to go, I guess, through all the answer. Do we still feel that this is going through the answers is important, or do we want to just go through the questions and make sure we're identifying the point people? I think at one point we decided this was kind of how we wanted to do it, so that one person wasn't so that you weren't stuck carrying the load. So I just want to make sure that you are comfortable.
Retired once.
We're not going to let you do that again, Byron.
Well, I do think it's critical, though, that we identify key ideas that should be in the
Okay.
answer, because
Yeah.
it's also, because you're the point person does not necessarily mean you have all the answers, right? And, or the whole perspective. So I think we want to make sure that all of us have input on the answers in case we have a point of view that the point person might not come from, but it's a good point of view.
Okay.
Or valid. So that's where I see maybe not going over word for word.
Yeah.
But make sure we have a bullet list of keywords that are important in the answer. That and definitely identifying point person, but that would be my suggestion.
And one thing I bring up, Byron, you kind of touched on it there briefly, but I don't really see it here anywhere, is this, the WUI layer is not just private. It's across
That's right.
all agency
Mhm.
lands, and actually
That's
more
a
of it
good
may
point.
fall on,
That's a really good point.
could potentially even fall on non-private ground in
Yeah.
some areas.
And we always say it's not specific. And it doesn't show landowners' names
Right.
and property lines.
Yeah.
But they're gonna look at it as being specific.
Yes.
There's my house.
Right.
I live right here. I'm in it.
They will be private, state, county, and federal lands all.
Yeah.
How many of you when this map came out looked to see where you lived? And then one of
Right,
the,
you do.
you
Yeah.
do.
You're like, where am
That's-
I?
yep.
One thing that might be good to mention too is what Matt mentioned a while back was that designation of WUI helps the Forest Service be able to prioritize
Mm.
their projects like that. That enables you to,
Yeah, I think that was really my point. It's
Yeah.
not to prioritize just private, it's prioritize private and all
Yes.
agencies.
Yeah.
So if that would be
That's a
BLM,
good point.
Forest Service, state.
yeah,
It improves the
County.
chances of cross-boundary projects.
right.
But we're not worried about people at this meeting who would be asking questions from the Forest Service or the other agencies. They already know what the map, we're worried about the people who don't know enough about what's in it. It's the general public.
Right, but this helps them know. that-
Right.
That hey, the Forest Service uses this to potentially work on the other side of your fence.
Right.
Instead of somewhere else, so, yeah.
That's what I see the value, just maybe helping them
Yeah.
understand that we're not just all of a sudden putting the bulls out on your house.
Right.
We're looking at this in a broader
We haven't even got a map. yet,
Right.
Okay.
Oh, did we
So-
have that question on?
Is there a map
there?
created?
What, no, what,
What's the
the
process?
first question, or what did Jeff say in the meeting? How are you defining WUI?
That's,
I forgot to
that's
say.
in the presentation itself.
Okay. Okay,
I know
But
there
it's
is
a part
one.
that it's
part of the
comes out
process,
of
that's
the-
right,
It's a
that's right,
process.
that's right. So
Yeah,
ask
right
them
there.
again. Point blank,
Well, you
Say
can remind him what you
the
just
same
said.
thing, yeah.
without being-
as we said,
Yeah.
right,
Well, the other,
that's right,
how is the WUI gonna be created? There's a question up there.
okay,
It's gonna be created through public comment,
right,
Mhm.
okay? And I don't know if that's answered up there or not.
yeah, there we go.
Uh,
Collaborative process, good, yeah.
Are we jumping to the next question?
Poor Hannah's trying to keep up with where we are.
So,
Are we
Okay.
good on the first question before we move
Yeah.
on, I guess?
I think so.
Yeah.
okay.
Collaborative process within the CWP. That's.
Mhm.
Yeah, within,
it's-
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yep.
not separate from that.
Yeah.
It's part of that development process.
yeah. You could actually take out.
The second, yeah,
sentence
yeah.
And then say utilizing the best available data as well as community
Community voices,
voices.
yeah.
To identify the values at risk within the community. As well as local stakeholder voices or whatever.
All good?
Now, Byron, are you good with being the point person on WUI questions, or
Yeah,
would you
that's fine.
prefer somebody else to be?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
He's
But
the
I
one
wanna
with
go back
most
to that
history.
Answer again,
Mhm.
Yep.
Anna. So it says the WUI map will be created through a collaborative process within the development of the CWD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
Want to use the same words that we used in the
good. In the
presentation.
presentation, yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
reinforce it.
Mhm.
Just say it twice.
Right.
Mhm.
We'll say it at least twice
Good morning.
in this meeting.
All right. Okay there? I know, it's either too small or too big.
We're gonna go over this one. Is the WUI map already created?
No.
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 Here's the
That's
answer.
Yeah. No.
I want to know that. Now, this one, we don't want to be indefinite. There will be an updated version. If we do a CWPP, it's a requirement, therefore, we will have an updated
Yeah.
map.
And it does say that the WUI map will be updated.
So but there should be an updated version of the movie map as well. There will be an updated version.
Okay.
We're there.
You wanna say there
No,
There.
next line up in the middle. Replace should with
There-
will.
there will.
No.
No, down one line.
So there is a WUI map from 2006.
Yeah. When updating
There.
the 2006 version.
There will.
there we go.
Everyone good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, move on.
So, Byron, I still have you on that. Just did that one. I think that's it.
What data is going to be used?
What?
There's a lot of data available for us to use when determining and identifying the WUI from both the state and federal government. There's the Montana Forest Action Plan that has identified priority areas throughout the state to restore healthy forests and restore healthy and resilient forests and reduce the risk to wildfire. There's the Montana Wildfire Risk Assessment. This data shows the current risk to wildfire in the state of Montana. This data is currently being modified to be used at the county level for those that plan to update their community wildfire protection plans. The Bitter National Forest has their fire shed data information that could be used as well, along with other resources from the Bitter National Forest. I didn't know what they were, so I didn't put those in. And what data is going to be used will be decided through a collaborative process again.
So I don't picture Byron reading all these words.
No.
I picture Byron highlighting a few words in case he
Yep.
has a slight memory lapse at the moment.
Ad libbing.
Yeah, I
Yes,
see
yeah,
you ad
yeah.
libbing because you know all this stuff.
Somebody
Yeah.
better have a cane handy.
That one okay overall? Any comments, additions? All right. Can
Yeah,
move on.
this is gonna end up in a frequently asked question thing on the.
And maybe
on
just
the
a list
website.
of,
Gotta Clean up stuff like state of Montana.
His hand's kind of out of commission right now, so just makes it a little difficult. So excuse all the typos because there are many.
I would say if we're gonna do a frequently asked questions, we all get addicted to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So we don't need this, how are you defining the movie?
No, we don't know.
It's decided within the CWPP process.
Yeah.
The public is gonna help us with that.
So that's it for the.
Those wooey ones.
And I guess it might be smart for the group to also maybe have like a vice point person just for some anomaly that may happen that, you know, Byron's not able to be there. Hopefully that won't be the case, but it might be good to have somebody that is well versed and can be that second point person just in case something happens.
Yeah.
So far, Byron and I have been taking in the production of the presentation.
So will you take on that role if?
We'll both be there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So where it says Byron, Ken is the vice. Where it says Ken, Byron is the vice.
You
Okay.
know, the question about how are we defining the movie, that might be best combined with the math question. Because the two are integrally related.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that way we won't have to deal with them separately.
Yeah. I will just,
The map's just really the product.
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
The defining movies,
Yeah.
Mhm.
a product.
Right.
Okay.
And it's a function of the definition.
Yes.
Is the CWPP a legally binding document or policy? No. It's neither. It's neither. It's a plan of action to make our community more adapted to wildfire and will be updated as needed when conditions change.
Yeah, you know, only caveat to that is actually by law, we're required on federal land to use it. Private isn't required to use it on their land, so.
It's not a legally binding document, but it provides guidance to federal agencies.
It's a little bit more than guidance for us. If you
Yeah,
have a
you have it.
CWPP, I have to use your movie
Yeah.
on my federal land. I have to,
Right.
so.
Which I think is a really big selling point because it allows the county to choose
Yeah.
directly what their WUI is, and
Be a
that's,
partner in
yeah.
developing.
exactly.
Basically, it's only an advisory document.
Mhm.
It advises people that look at it.
Mhm.
You know, should I use this or shouldn't I do this?
Mhm.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
There's no legality strapped to it.
Right. For the private, but I do think that's a really good
Heifer,
emphasis. to
heifer
put on
acts,
there.
either we
Yeah.
have to use heifer WUI, or if there's a
Right.
county CWPP, then we have to use the county CWPP.
So in other words, if you don't have a WUI
We have to. use the
identified
heifer
and,
defined.
you're off base with your planning efforts, basically.
We have to use the heifer definition.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is, you know. That's best. So don't you want to locally define yours?
Mhm.
So is this the answer, Bridget? Is it under the wrong column?
No, so everyone was supposed to put their own answers in there. That's Judy.
it's me.
Great answer, Judy.
It's okay.
So who is the point person for this question?
It's just part of that same suite of questions related to.
So these,
Oh, no, this one isn't. Never mind.
Yeah, they're just kind of the basic you know.
Well,
Well,
we
this
covered
isn't
that
that
in
basic.
the
work, this
introduction
is-
too, Ken, don't we? Yeah, we do. Yes, I was just trying to, and I think we stayed in here. This is a third time markup, so I'm trying to track what we ended up with, but we do say in here that it's not a legal document.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's policy review because of the HEFRA implementation language.
On
Right,
federal
but
land.
it's policy, it's not a legally binding agreement.
And there's nothing making it tied private to any action.
Right.
Right.
So the point
And I don't
person,
find that, but we do say that in those characteristics of a CWPP and that other document that we had.
Mhm.
well, I mean, we don't know how
Oh,
they're gonna frame the
We say
question.
it's a non-regulatory, community-based plan that is advisory in nature. That's the first one of our bullets.
Yeah.
Now, it may not be exactly like that, but it's pretty close to that after 3 markups. This is the second and third markup notes. But non-regulatory, community-based plan,
You want to put that in there?
yeah, never hurts to
for
say
them, it is.
things again to reinforce it. It's neither,
I don't know if
it's
that,
a non-regulatory, community-based.
But is that still true considering?
Plan,
Yeah, it's just it's a policy.
Yeah.
for us.
Plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
right.
It doesn't regulate.
No.
They just have to.
Their
utilize
policy
the data
requires
it
them
has.
to use it
Yeah.
if it exists.
Yes, which is what it's, the intent is, that way we're using local community input in how we manage
Instead of defaulting to the effort.
national, yeah.
okay.
Is
We,
that in the handbook or just in the implementation rates?
Just in the act itself. I don't,
So it never got into the.
I think it's in
manual or
some,
handbook
no, I
direction.
think it's in some guides, but nothing, no policy. I don't think so. I can recall.
So
we,
I added this, is this correct, or do we want to word it different?
It's a non-regulatory community-based plan that is advisory in nature.
I would take out, it is policy for the Forest Service, because it's not necessarily the CWPP is policy for the Forest Service. I would just leave it as federal land is required to use the WUI designated in CWPP. It's just a requirement. That's the policy, not that they have to use the whole CWPP. So,
okay, I want to jump in because it is 8:25 right now and we do have a lot of questions still to go through. So we're not getting through all these questions tonight. So, and especially, I mean, if we're gonna assign a point person and so for the CWPP
That's right out of the
questions,
core of the presentation, so
right,
that seems
right.
like it ought to go. The ones that come up from the side, like, what's it gonna do to my insurance rates? That's an easy one to deflect
Point to-
somebody else.
Yep. So you're both comfortable with all the WUI question, but all questions that come?
Yeah.
Unless you need to point to someone at which, I mean, I would be fine if you needed to look to me and,
Yeah, well,
But-
some of these questions may not even come up.
right, exactly.
Right.
So that's what, for the sake of time and,
The one about when will residents have opportunity? I think residents might want to know, are we going to have more than one shot at this target?
yeah. I think,
That is the obvious answer to this is throughout the CWPP development process.
Yeah.
Now, what interval and what form that takes is part of the process,
decision-making process.
but it'll be throughout the process.
Exactly.
So will the point of contact for the resident questions, who are we? If they come up, who's gonna take those?
Is there any reason why Byron wouldn't take that one too?
I think those are pretty straightforward. Answer is yes. Next question.
Do you two want to, are you comfortable with that? All of them? Yeah. Okay.
Both of these questions came up the last time. but that was
Byron's
several
already
years
answered
ago.
them.
Oh.
Pretty straightforward. You don't actually have that in you.
Byron can handle
So-
anything.
Yeah.
What benefits did the 2006 CWPP provide? How do we keep this one from just gathering dust on the shelf?
Who's gonna ask that?
They should ask it.
Even I wouldn't ask that.
So what benefits did the one we didn't sign provide?
No, the 2006.
Oh.
So the idea being, okay, we have a CWPP. What has that gotten us? Right? Because if we're gonna do this over again, if the first one didn't do anything, why do we think the second one is going to do anything? Do you see what I'm saying? So I would ask that potentially. So I think it might be something to identify.
From
And
the
actually
Forest Service
what-
side, it definitely focused our treatments for the first
Yeah.
5 to 10 years.
It did, yeah, because we had priority areas. It really wasn't a woo. Priority area.
Right.
So, yeah, it did focus treatment. And, but we moved beyond that now.
So how is this one going to be used and not just be another exercise of people having lots and lots of meetings and yay, we have a document and nothing changes?
It encompasses basically the whole valley rather than small priority areas. It encompasses all of the high fire risk areas that are in the valley. The old one does not.
And the environment for fires has changed considerably, so maybe we'll be more serious this time.
I think definitely are hiding this. We have an entity in us to drive it too, right? We have that coordination, Bitterroot RC&D drove that first one.
Things have changed in the 15 years. Got to update it because the environment has changed. And the number of residents in this valley has really changed. We're on the increase. There is people moving into these high risk areas that weren't there before.
Yeah, we even have, that would be an interesting number. Do we have difference from 2006 to today, population wise?
We can get it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet Rick has that. He's got all the data.
That's probably a pretty surprising number to some folks.
It's actually gone up probably about 15,000.
Yeah.
And if you had the risk map, if there was one that existed in 2006, to be able to make that comparison, if it was maybe golden color or light and now it's all red, I think that would be.
You know, the maps are probably not comparable enough to actually.
Right.
They really aren't, yeah.
And the priority areas are not the same as a designated WUI from lots of standpoints, including Forest Service policy. And so the population is a direct comparison, distribution is logical, but risk ratings and priority areas versus the WUI, that'll bog us down. Yeah, I don't know that you want to necessarily get into the whole population question. Anyway, the difference between 35 and 50 is not, it doesn't strike people as being a very big number, but what most people don't understand about a lot of this stuff is that these are all exponential curves. And so that 15 years to add 15,000 is now gonna take 10 years to add the next 15,000. 5 years to add the next 15,000.
And where they live too.
Right.
If you look back.
It's not gonna matter, it's not gonna matter where you live. Ask people in Boulder. Wildfire doesn't mean fire in wildlands anymore.
Right.
It means fire gone wild. And that's the key to that.
Well, there certainly is an element of that, but in terms of the general perception, more people up there in the wildland interface as a percentage of the total is a meaningful.
Yeah. Well, actually, those homes bring it to the Kootenai Creeks, right? That really are pretty fire safe if you look at each individual home. But you've got that homes being the fuels for each other, and then homes densely close together and boom, 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 boom. You got dominoes.
And there you're
the
talking about
marketplace.
the kind of thing.
Yes, that's right.
Boulder, Stanford.
Yeah.
Any number of places in
Yeah.
the last decade.
Are we good on that question? Yeah.
Yes. So it is already past 8:30. Did we want to continue going through these, or how can I make these most useful to you? Would you like this? Would you like me to change it into bullet points? Is it useful? Do you not want it?
This is Excel spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just send it to me.
Awesome.
Well, and are there any that we want other POCs, other points of contact?
Like more specific than just Byron
Like, do
and
you
Ken.
want me to do the funding one, or do you not want me, if we get any specific like infrastructure bill ones, do you want that to come to me? You guys want to try to pitch it? Because I'm happy to do that, but
There could be questions on the Joint Chiefs stuff and what else is down the road. And, you know, the DNRC.
I won't know the Joint Chiefs. Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
that's
so,
not mine.
so there could be a whole series of answers to that question on funding. That, you know, I'm not versed very well with it, but I could wing it.
Okay.
And then somebody could be there to help rescue me.
Yeah, I will be prepared with infrastructure
Yeah.
bill and kind of the latest on that.
Mhm.
And then for the Joint Chiefs, is that something either you or Anna might?
Well, I
might
think
be
really
able to
the,
help them
the
out?
answer to that is with Joint Chiefs for the private land, it comes down through NRCS and state and private forestry down through the state of Montana. The federal treatments comes down through to the Forest Service. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the.
Okay.
Do we have, can I suggest maybe, so the commissioner meeting is at 2, right?
2 p.m.
So do we even have identified the core group from the fire and the road that's gonna attend, and can we maybe meet beforehand so we can
That's
get our ducks in a row?
I don't know if we need them
Ducks are in a pretty good
beforehand,
row.
but we just need to make sure we're there.
So who's attending? Do we know, do we have a list that's attending?
No. That's, yeah.
I plan to attend, but I don't plan to answer any questions. I'm concerned about what kind of public questions we
Yeah.
get. That's
Yeah.
where my interest is.
Yeah, who is planning on attending? So we can make that list really quick. You better. You and Byron too.
awesome.
Okay. And then Brandon.
And I'll download the presentation off of
Anne Marie.
the shared drive and put it on a thumb drive.
Okay, perfect.
Well, yeah, I'll send it to you on an email, but I'll also bring the thumb drive. So we have it physically and not trying to work off of a cloud someplace.
Yeah, that's the only thing about being there early is is to tie in with the commissioners and make sure we get their stuff up and running, because we've had a few meetings where they've struggled to get their equipment up and running and get our stuff plugged in. So
So is our slot at 2 or the meetings, the whole meeting starts at 2?
That's an Eric question, but
It's on their website though, too. It's not like in their schedule, so.
Slot is
Agenda's
two.
on the website.
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, I think our slot is 2. Like, that's what we said in
The
past.
specific, okay.
And they
When
start
it
at
starts
1
running.
or something. I think,
Okay,
after lunch.
okay.
Yeah. But that's
So
a
we
really
should
good.
probably
Yeah.
be there early enough to move it up, to load it up, and be there in case something gets ahead of schedule.
Brian Adams will also be there.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, Anna, you tell us, what time do we need to be there? Because we're always ready, on time, and I'm always late, so.
Well, I guess I think it's good to be there a half an hour early so we can, as a group, go in together and make sure we have everyone there, but maybe that's too much time.
No, it isn't. No, that's fine. It's not.
That's why I'm always late.
That's what I would suggest. And then for the folks that aren't here, like Brandon, obviously we'll reach out to them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Yeah, we could be there at 1:30.
That sounds
More
good.
than like bonsai. Background music.
Yeah,
Ooh,
are you
background music.
Yeah.
You don't get to ask for data.
Okay, so got a general idea of attendance and questions. Any other comments, questions, concerns about questions?
Are you incorporating your letters of support?
So letters of
piece?
support will be brought to the commissioners and handed to them. Are you
Part of their
guys,
packets, probably. Yeah.
are we making packets? Do we need to make packets?
So we are making hard copy of the presentation. with
Awesome.
A couple slides per page, and note. And, spots for them to write notes. So
Awesome.
they'll have a paper version.
Perfect.
Yeah, we
I
might present
I
that.
thought the letters of recommendation were trickling in at a rate that would make them viable for our proposal, but not for this meeting. I thought we were gonna say in the presentation that all of the people who signed it before are moving forward with the letter of recommendation. But beyond that, I didn't think we were gonna deal with who was recommending it. But if we got a lot of those letters.
I think that's a good idea. Just not give them the letters at this point, dude. I think seems like we're handing them too much stuff.
Here's a question for you. Are they voting after this presentation on whether to?
I don't know if it's a decision
Okay.
on their
Is it a
agenda or
decision?
not.
It is. It will, it should be.
Well, it
To
should
give
be.
us a letter of support.
Of course it should be.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's a discussion or a decision on their agenda.
Okay.
And they can't make a decision if they don't put it on the agenda as a decision.
Just one thought, and I'll throw it out. You guys take it however you want. If I'm presenting something to them, they're gonna be talking to their constituents about. I usually give a packet to each commissioner. So they each have the information that they're gonna carry forward then with Como in the community.
Right.
So just for whatever you feel needs to go.
No,
in that.
that's exactly what we were gonna do.
We
We're
should put a
just
fire in
talking
the
now
refresher.
about what
Mhm.
actually goes into it. They'll certainly get the presentation. And how about, do we have letters of recommendation from all of the signatories to the last one?
The fire, All Valley Fire Council one.
Council's doing one
Yep.
package. So
Yep.
that counts for a bunch of them.
We,
These are all the letters of support
Yeah.
that we have received.
We also could just do a document listing who we have letters of support from.
That'd be.
Like instead of giving them all the letters of support
Right, they
copies,
don't need all that paper.
just give them
There's
one piece of paper that says, we have letters of support from all the entities, and then if you would like the hard copy of these, we would be happy to provide that. at a later date. So
Okay.
I would like.
And don't
that
even offer
information,
it.
like I
Make
think-
them ask for it. If they want it, they'll ask.
Well, we want to give them this. We want to show them that
But
we
we
have.
want to show them the broad support when it comes time for the proposal.
Right? No,
So-
because we want their letter of support.
We do, we absolutely have to have their letter of support
Right.
to make the proposal a viable entity. But, so,
Some of these are duplicates. Do you want me to read them? to you?
Well, if we don't,
No.
if we don't provide them that list, then that's probably gonna be one of the questions they may
Right.
ask.
Who
right,
supports
well, I think
And-
we need the list.
Yeah,
I
oh,
just
yeah.
don't think we need the letter.
No, I'm good with just a list. But I think we need to provide them. We need to show them.
That'd
Yeah.
be,
Like.
yeah.
No, I think we need
support
the
them.
list, and I think we need the ones who signed it last time separated from the
Mm.
ones who didn't sign it, that weren't.
Right.
So my question would be, when are we providing these letters of support then?
Right?
When do we plan on providing these letters of
If
support?
they ask them.
If
Okay.
they don't need them, we don't
And then
need
we
to
use them for
provide
the
them.
RFP, like they
Okay.
were to knock out the two birds. And so we need them for the RFP.
Yeah, we absolutely need it for that.
Yeah.
And the questions somebody raised about whether the commissioners will make the decision that at that meeting may depend on the questions they get. If they get uncomfortable,
Yep.
they may have to have time to talk together without everybody listening, and they may not make a decision.
Mhm.
So
So-
Brian has a comment. As long as there's no opposition present, they will make a motion to support this and vote to approve right then.
Okay. Awesome.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Okay. So we know who's gonna be there. There's probably gonna be more attendees. I know other people, not off the top of my head. I assume Mike Kent's gonna be there, definitely. He wasn't able to come tonight. But so I think that's a pretty solid attendance. I've got the letters of support, so I can create a document with the list in there if you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
Separate out the ones that signed. that
Okay.
are-
Okay.
That could be in the packet.
Yeah, that could, yeah,
That's-
yeah. Which we have red folders and we can give you guys like a little folder with the fire and the root sticker on there and make it look all nice and pretty. Unless the folder's too much paper. Do you need some of those folders?
They need paper to take with them.
Huh?
They need paper to take. with them.
Yes, yes.
Just like, oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I think we were good on the presentation run through, correct? You guys feel good?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So we didn't make it to that. Letter support, I will continue making sure that those are trickling in throughout, since we don't need them for the 10th.
Did you get the one from the fire council, Valley County Fire Council?
Amy has it. There were 3 signatures after the last meeting that she needed to grab. Hinesdale, Sula, Darby. Actually, yeah, Sula was, but I actually have a personal letter from them. So we get it on there. It doesn't, I don't know. And then like Steve Ice City too. So she was gonna get that to me. So. Yeah.
Well, put
Okay.
them on the list.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
even though you don't have it in hand.
Yes. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Like it. How do you close?
Yes, I mean, unless there's any other comment from the group before we all decide to escape, we are after time. So with that, we can certainly adjourn.
Awesome.
And next meeting